Hey class, welcome to Module 11, the second to last Jedi. And I'm going to do the lecture for the whole module second or last because of the fact it's got major spoilers in it. So I'm going to jump straight into the Last Jedi notes and do that first. So The Last Jedi, it was directed by Rian Johnson, who also did Brick, Looper, and then after this film he did Knives Out. It was also written by Rian Johnson. Its budget was $317 million, and its box office was $620 million domestic, $1.3 billion worldwide, and that was considered to be the beginning of the downward box office trend for the Star Wars movies. So J.J. Abrams could have directed this film, but he chose not to. So pre-production was already starting for The Last Jedi during the principal photography of The Force Awakens, and that was too much for him. He's like, nah, I'm done. Rian Johnson was selected by Kathleen Kennedy in 2014, and he had a finished script before the first movie was finished with post-production. So they knew what was going on with that, and everyone was in the loop and knew what was going on, so there was no disconnect between production partners on the direction that this film was going, even if Mark Hamill disagreed completely with Luke's arc. So this is the truth. There is no basement in that pizzeria. A lot of the trolls out there just don't understand how this movie even got made in the first place, but it did, and everybody was cool with that. So our synopsis. The Rebel Alliance is on the run from the extremely angry First Order Armada. Remember, they blew up the Starkiller base in the last film, and hooray, they won, but unfortunately, the whole Armada is coming after them now. Rey is on Octo, extending a lightsaber towards the recently rediscovered Luke Skywalker. Poe is sidelined. Finn is ready to desert again, and things should probably get better from here, but they don't. In fact, they get a whole lot worse. So, some additional notes for this. So even though Carrie Fisher died in 2016, she had already completed all of her scenes for The Last Jedi. So in this movie, it's 100% real Princess Leia all the way through. There were like some stunt shots that you wouldn't have been in anyway that weren't her, but it's throughout this film, it's all her. For The Rise of Skywalker, that's a totally different situation. And then Kenny Baker, who originally was the original R2, he also died in 2016, but he had already retired from the role after the second trilogy. So he did the Revenge of the Sith, and then he was done, and so he was replaced by somebody else by the time The Force Awakens came out. And then, of course, Peter Mayhew ended up dying later, but we'll talk about that when we get to The Rise of Skywalker. So I'm going to warn you one last time that you should read this last after you watch the movie, okay? So, The Last Jedi, the worstest film ever made. Once again, massive spoilers ahead, okay? So if you haven't seen the movie yet, you should watch it first, because I'm going to take a deep dive into it right here. So, you'd think that blowing up another Death Star would finish off the dregs of the Empire, but strangely, they come out of The Force Awakens like a swarm of angry hornets who also happen to be both more numerous and better equipped than their sadly deplenished rebel adversaries. It's kind of a sad reality check, which also extends to the ridiculously unfortunate bombing run on the Dreadnought, dropping bombs in space. Apparently, it can be done, but the question is, should it? But Luke Skywalker, whom we just found, is going to save us all, right? Apparently not. So these are just a few of the betrayals to be found in The Last Jedi, which make it simultaneously hated by fans, the most rabid of them anyway, and loved by critics, the snootiest of them, which is like all of them. Since I fall right in the middle of that, neither loving it nor loathing it, I'm going to try to decode some of what this film is trying to do so that we as a class can approach it objectively. So we're neither snooty critics or rabid fanboys. We want to be like right in the middle there, okay? So first of all, how did it happen? So J.J. Abrams had other projects on the back burner and was totally overwhelmed doing The Force Awakens. Didn't want to do another film. Said, I'm doing one and that's it. So Rian Johnson was tapped to write and direct the second film, and this all happened way before The Force Awakens was finished. So we tend to forget about the multi-year planning process for every big film. And he was supervised and vetted by Kathleen Kennedy, who's the singularly most important and powerful person in the Disney Lucasfilm machine. She does not let people just do what they want with the Star Wars franchise. So you could just ask Gareth Edwards, Phil Lord, and Christopher Miller, and Colin Trevorrow, which we'll talk more about him later. They were all fired or removed or sidelined for not doing exactly what they were allegedly supposed to do. So despite this level of oversight, Rian Johnson managed to pull off a Star Wars film that is intensely critical of everything that Star Wars is about. Its logic, its mythos, and its magic. Fans were not ready, but critics were, and then Disney definitely was not prepared for the ensuing shitstorm, and more on that later too. So, what does it do that's so bad, meaning inappropriate for Star Wars superfans? And I'm going to put on the mantle of a Star Wars superfan when I do this right now. The rebels lose every battle, as in all of them. They're constantly getting their asses kicked, like for the whole movie. The good guys are supposed to win all the time, if necessary. Too many women. They're everywhere, and they're in charge, and they drive the narrative. This is not supposed to happen. They're damsels in distress, they're love interests, they're scantily clad slaves. They're not overly powerful Jedi, admirals, and deserter corralling slave revolt starters. So stop it. They talk too much and they're ruining the movie. Luke don't want to. He just don't. But he's the most powerful Jedi in the universe, right? Because he's Luke Skywalker, and he's going to come and he's going to beat some serious First Order ass. Isn't he? Why is he hiding? Why is he still drinking purple milk or blue milk or green milk or whatever he's drinking? And why won't he train Mary Sue? I mean Rey. I don't like any of the answers here. Snoke, there he is. Whoops, they just killed him. The Holdo maneuver, another woman doing something she isn't supposed to do because of science. He wasn't doing it because of science. It's wrong because of science. More on that later. And many more. So I've got a comprehensive list of the movie's crimes listed right here. Someone just took all of them, all the reasons this movie is the suckiest, baddest, worstest movie ever made in the history of bad movies. I've got a few of those for you, if you folks want to get that out. It gets old after a while, though. But, Star Wars is really easy pickings for critique in all of these areas. Many of which we've already discussed at length when we talked about the first two trilogies. And it isn't like we haven't already watched a 3-film arc of the Jedi getting completely blown up because of their lack of situational awareness, blind focus on tradition, and exaggeration of their own powers, which Luke specifically references on Crate when justifying his refusal to fully engage. The Jedi have always been fundamentally flawed, and Luke's near murder of his own nephew made this Kyber crystal clear to him. The plucky rebels always defeating a much stronger enemy and just barely escaping. It gets old after a while. Okay, their luck runs out. Sooner or later, it's going to happen. They run and hide, and this is what happens in Empire, after all. Which, in a lot of ways, this film is kind of patterned on that. It's definitely vastly inferior, but it's going for kind of a similar vibe there. The men screw up and the women take charge. And Dan, that's just like real life, okay? And science, Star Wars was never about science. Never, ever, ever. So criticizing a space bombing run because of gravity and a light speed kamikaze move, because if she could do that now, then that means that everyone could have done it all the time in all the movies. It really misses the point of this not science fiction space saga, which is about things that look and sound cool in space. That's what it's all about. Things that look cool and they sound cool in space, and there is no sound in space, but we still got it. And don't forget, we got porgs. It's about porgs, puffin cover-uppers in Ireland, okay? But still, Snoke's ignominious death and Rey's non-Jedi history are problematic for us. And unfortunately, J.J. Abrams and Lawrence Kasdan left those two things for Rian Johnson to figure out, and he chose not to. The Jedi are done, the Sith are done. All we have left are Kylo Ren and Rey, who are technically neither of those two things. And don't forget Leia, who flexes her Jedi powers for the first time at the age of 60. So work with that next writer person. How do you explain it? And I think the cynical approach to Finn is awkward, as is the entire Canto Bight sequence, since his relationships with Poe and Rey can never be fully explored. I know I'm like a broken record here. He needs to be sidelined with a race-appropriate potential love interest. So studies have shown that white audiences are most accepting of Asian partners for African American male characters. So there we go. It's Disney, okay? And it also places Rose Tico, who's otherwise a groundbreaking character, in the crosshairs of angry fans because she's getting in the way of all those ships there. And right now, Kelly Marie Tran, Jake Lloyd, and Javad Best are all commiserating over cocktails because of effed up fanboy hate for them. So as I mentioned, the Star Wars trilogy can really ruin lives, and it worked really hard for these folks. So what are we left with? It's an unevenly paced movie that goes to genuinely new places in the Star Wars universe, featuring some stunning action sequences, ridiculously beautiful yet tragic space battles, head-scratching narrative decisions, and the singularly, if arguably, most badass and subversive Jedi moment in the whole trilogy of trilogies, which is Luke's battle with Kylo Ren on Crate. And I know some people would set me on fire for saying that, but I don't care. It's like totally badass and like the most Jedi thing ever. And the fact that it is what it is makes it even more of a Jedi moment. It almost redeems them as far as I'm concerned. Whatever. So this is neither the worst nor the best of the Star Wars movies. You know, it's kind of lower half, I think. But, I mean, it's definitely not Attack of the Clones, for Pete's sake, or Phantom Menace. You know, it's somewhere in the lower part, but it's not that bad. Okay. And where do we go from here? Because this is kind of like messed up everything. Have we still got, J.J. Abrams' phone number? How are we going to fix this shit?